Great Train Wreck of 1856. One of the very first of controversial accidents to happen during that time, exposing the dangers of rail travel in the 1800s. It is also known as the picnic disaster to the city of Philadelphia, but if you're from my area in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, we call this wreck the Camp Hill disaster. On April 8, 1852, the Philadelphia, Easton, and Water Gap Railroad was inaugurated as a railroad that could connect the city of Philadelphia to the Lehigh Valley. The name was changed on April 18, 1853 to the North Pennsylvania Railroad. It was opened on Monday, July 2, 1855, with an excursion from Cohinquiote Station at Front and Willow Streets in Philly to Wissahickon, an outlying area to the northwest. Farmers could now ship their produce more economically to markets increasingly far from home. The railroad, which transported both freight and people, was already becoming an important component of the load commerce, until one fateful day, everything changed. July 17th, 1856. It was one of the hottest days of the year, and it was about to get even hotter. The St. Michael's Roman Catholic Church in Philadelphia's Kensington section was contracted to the North Pennsylvania Railroad to send the Sunday school children on a picnic in Chayef Woods, a sprawling grove near the railroad's Wissahickon Station. The train was led by North Pennsylvania No. 2, nicknamed the Shakamaxon, which is Kensington's Native American name, and was crewed by engineer Henry Harris. According to the New York Times, the train had 1,100 people on board and was running 23 minutes late due to the large passenger lag. Shakamaxon was known to have an issue with its boiler pressure dropping, and the train had to make several stops in order to keep its boiler pressure up. At the Wissahickon station, another train was heading the opposite way as a normal local. The train was led by North Pennsylvania No. 3, the Argamino, engineered by William Vanstatoben. The train waited for the excursion to pass on the single-track line that had just opened 1 year and 15 days prior. Shakamaxon was late, but the conductor did not use the telegraph to communicate with the Cohinquiote station and had no idea when the excursion had left. There was a customary 15-minute waiting period for regularly scheduled trains, but the picnic schedule was an excursion, so there was no way to know how long to wait. At 6:15, the Argamino, carrying 20 passengers from Gwynedd, pulled out of the station on what would be a deadly journey. The engineer of the Shakamaxon was confident, thinking he could make up for lost time. He knew the Argamino was due to come in the opposite direction on the same track, but thought he could use the siding at Edge Hill in Abington Township to let the Argamino pass safely. As he neared a blind curve just past Camp Hill Station, the train was traveling slightly downhill. Argamino was rounding the same curve, and although Harris blew the whistle almost continuously, the Doppler effect phenomenon was not widely understood at the time, and as a result, neither engine knew where each other were. As they rounded the curve, they finally caught sight of one another, but it was too late. Trains collide head-on at 6:18 a.m. between the Camp Hill Station and the present-day crossing of the Pennsylvania Railroad's Trenton Cutoff, aka the Morrisville line, over the Bethlehem branch of the Reading Railroad, aka the Lansdale-Doylestown. When the boilers made contact, the explosion could be heard 5 miles away. The shock wave, the hissing steam, wood splintering, steel crunching, and the screams and moans of people of all ages caused the crowd to gather to the site to help rescue victims. The impact caused a fire to spread throughout both trains, burning many victims alive in the horrifying inferno. The blaze could be seen for several miles, and a man reportedly rode on horseback through the Montgomery County countryside shouting to the residents, "Bring your Campor bottles, Baslam, and lint! There has been a horrible accident!" But the heat of the burning wreckage was so intense, even though protruding arms and legs and other bodies could be glimpsed through the flame and smoke, it was impossible to get close enough to attempt a rescue. Mary Johnson Ambler, a Quaker woman who resided near the Wissahickon station, quickly gathered first aid materials and covered a 2-mile distance between her home and the disaster site on foot to help rescue the victims. Meanwhile, the tragic news had reached the city and spread through the parish. Men rushed from the factories, women ran sobbing through the streets, and at Cocking Station they had to restrain the people by police when they attempted to use hand cars. Coaches were attached to the idle locomotive at the station, but they were given almost entirely to the Sisters of Charities, nurses, and physicians. Approximately 60 people died, mostly children and mostly burned. Over 100 more sustained injuries. William Vansertoben, who escaped uninjured, almost felt he was to blame for the accident. He returned to Philadelphia, reported the accident, and went to his residence in Philly and committed suicide by taking arsenic and morphine. However, he was in no way responsible for the accident. He was 100% cleared. A jury trial blamed the accident on the excursion engineer, Henry Harris, for his carelessness and not only disregarding his timetable, but failing to use the telegraph to let the station masters and engineer of the Argomino know where he was and how late he was. So after this accident, the North Pennsylvania Railroad provided financial benefits for the victims and their families. They issued shares of stock to those who would accept it and gave money to those who would not. The Shacamaxon was rebuilt and renamed the Delaware and continued operation as Philly and Reading No. 2. It was scrapped in 1901. The Argomino was rebuilt and renamed to Lehigh and was retired and cut up in 1881. The railroad officially shut down operations on the following Sunday after the accident to honor the victims. The North Pennsylvania Railroad was then acquired by the Philadelphia and Reading, which was later became the Reading Railroad, and today the tracks are now a part of the SEPTA Lansdale-Doylestown line. Wissahickon Station was renamed to its current name, Ambler, as well as the town itself, after Mary Ambler's death in 1868, to honor her efforts to help the victims, and present-day Wissahickon is now located near East Falls along the Manioc-Norristown line. 163 years have now passed, and even today, the Camp Hill disaster, while not as deadly as accidents like Armagh or the wreck of 1918, it was still one of the most significant accidents of the 19th century.